Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis. The quantitative analysis represents 8 to 12% of the exam weighting. These are the 6 reading in quantitative analysis. The interest rate has various applications in investment. The interest rate can be seen as the required interest rate, discount rate, or opportunity cost. The interest rate can be seen as a required interest rate, in which the investor needs a certain percentage of return in undertaking the risk in the investment product. Opportunity cost is when investor value interest from one investment opportunity for another investment opportunity. Effective annual rate is to calculate the interest rate due to t compounding interest over different frequency. And increase in compounding period m, increase the effective annual rate. This practice problem, it attempts to use the previous slide formula to calculate the compounding interest rate at CD1 quarterly, and 2, continuously. Annuity is the fixed payout. An ordinary annuity is payments started at end of the period, while annuity due is payments started at the beginning period of the moment. Perpetuity is an infinite flow of payments. In order to answer this question, input the relevant information: payment PMT, period N, interest rate E, present value PV, into the financial calculator. Press compute CPT, future value FE, and you would get future value of 331 for this question. Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis, Reading 7. Reading 7 is to focus on several statistical concepts. This slide is to explain various types of scaling and statistical measurements: nominal scale, ordinary scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. There are 4 types of measurements to measure mean value. Given everything else equal, the harmonic mean is less than geometric mean and is less than arithmetic mean. In this practice problem, it is to compare the mean value, using arithmetic mean and geometric mean. Quantiles divide the distribution into parts. In this practice problem, it is to calculate distribution in the 3rd quartile. Dispersion measures how distribution is stretched, and the dispersion can be explained by range, median absolute deviation, variance. In this practice problem, it is to calculate Chebyshev's inequality, lower limit and upper limit. With the K value of 3.1623, we calculate lower limit and upper limit. Coefficient of variation, CV, is to measure unit of risk to unit of return. Sharpe ratio is to measure excess return to unit of risk. Sharpe ratio is the very important ratio in investment analysis, and you see this in CFA Level 2 and Level 3. In this practice problem, it is to calculate coefficient variation and Sharpe ratio. This slide is to measure skewness in the probability distribution. One way to remember is to link the right foot as positive and left foot as negative. Kurtosis measure whether the tail is heavy tail or light tail. To remember leptokurtic, you can think as leaping high. To remember platykurtic, you can think as flat plateau. Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis, Reading 8. This is the overview of Reading 8. This is to explain the odds for and against end events. In this practice, it helps to illustrate how to apply the above equation to solve the calculation for and odds for an event. This is to illustrate the multiplication and addition rule, as well as the mutually exclusive and independence event. This slide is to use Venn diagram to explain the scenario for mutually exclusive and independent events. To calculate variance, we need to have the expected value, which is the sum of probability and price. Variance and expected value can be calculated using the historical mean price to calculate historical variance. Correlation measures the statistical relationship between the individual market. Covariance explains the relationship. With positive value explain co-movement, and negative value explain inverse movement. This slide to use a graphical illustration of zero correlation, positive correlation and negative correlation. The calculation of correlation could be affected by nonlinear relationship, outliers, and spurious correlation. An investment portfolio consists of multiple assets. Expected return is the weighted average return of all assets, and standard deviation measure the volatility of asset return. Bayes' formula describes the probability of an event based on prior knowledge of conditions. The probability of stock A to increase, event B is conditional on net income to increase or decrease in event A. And this the calculation. This is to summarize computation of probability using multiple rule, factorial, labeling, combination and permutation. Start. Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis, Reading 9. Reading 9 is to explain the common probability distribution. Binomial distribution is to obtain the probability of observing number of success p, in a sequence of n independent experiments. In this practice problem, it is to illustrate the solution for the binomial distribution. Definition and practice problem for a continuous distribution. In the probability density function, it illustrates the likelihood of an outcome. In the normal distribution, it has the skewness of 0 and kurtosis of 3. This explains the corresponding standard deviation and the confidence interval. For example, 2 standard deviation represents 95% probability. This slide illustrates the formula to calculate z-score and the practice problem. In addition to Sharpe ratio, which discusses earlier, there is also other risk measurement ratios such as Roy's safety first criterion. In this practice problem, it is to solve the safety first ratio. In the earlier slide, we have noted the normal distribution, which distributes from negative positive values. In other cases, the distribution is only positive, so ch a share price, we can use log normal distribution. Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis, Reading 10. In this slide, it is important to remember the definition of the central limit theorem, which indicates the sample would approximate the population as the sample size increase. Estimator is to estimate the population of data based on the sample given. And, estimator should be, as we estimating the sample, the point estimate explain the mean of the population, and the confidence interval explains the range of plausible value. Practice problem to illustrate the confidence interval. With that, we need the standard error. T-distribution is to use the sample to estimate the population. Comparing the z-distribution, T-distribution is used when we have unknown variance. Welcome to CFA Level 1, Quantitative Analysis, Reading 11. We can use statistical analysis to evaluate the confidence level of our findings. As in this example, we can confidence level on whether a null hypothesis HO, a person is innocent, and alternative analysis HA, person is guilty. This slide is to explain the 95% confidence level for one-tail analysis and two-tails analysis. To answer whether we can reject the hypothesis, we need to estimate the t-value, and compare with the critical value. This slide to identify the test analysis when we have different condition in testing the mean hypothesis. This slide to identify the test analysis when we have different condition in testing the variance hypothesis and correlation hypothesis. For example, when we have the significance level or critical value of 5%, the smaller the p-value, the greater the confidence level. As we increase the confidence level of null hypothesis, we also increase the type 2 error. In a two-tails test on the null hypothesis, the p-values is 0.0558. Compared to the 5% level of significance, which of the following is true? This slide explains the difference between parametric and non-parametric test.